I'm Bradley Graham. I'm the co-owner of Politics and Prose, along with my wife, Lissa Muscatine, who's over there. And on behalf of everybody at P&P and the entire staff, welcome. Thank you. Thank you very much for coming. I get so excited when Dave comes to the store. You know, we do over 700 events a year, and I'm not supposed to have favorites, but for entertainment without a cover charge, Dave Barry is about the best you're going to find anywhere. And so here's a news flash. Dave Barry is now in his early 70s. In fact, he turns 72 this July. And many of us have grown old, or at least older, with Dave, and he certainly kept us cheered along the way with his many books, a number of which have worked age or aging into the title, like Dave Barry Turns 40, Dave Barry Turns 50, or just a few years ago, Live Right and Find Happiness. In his latest effort to find lessons on how to maintain a healthy, upbeat attitude while graying, Dave has turned to his senior dog, Lucy. She's the canine embodiment of such life-sustaining attributes as living in the present, letting go of daily grievances, and feeling good in one's own skin. And of course, she's a perfect foil for Dave's own seemingly eternal wit and wisdom. One of the aspects of being a septuagenarian is that you've lived long enough for people to talk about you as having certain signature traits. In Dave's case, it's, depending on the reviewer, his signature wryness, sarcasm, free-flowing style, and self-deprecating, quirky stream of consciousness humor, all signatures of Dave. However you want to describe it, it's all very much in abundance in Dave's latest hilarious, touching, insightful work, Lessons from Lucy, The Simple Joys of an Old Happy Dog. And just a heads up, be sure to get to the final chapter, which is entitled One Last Lesson. It's about Dave's daughter, Sophie, and takes an unexpected turn that is particularly emotional, but beautifully written and deeply moving. Oh, and by the way, at Dave's suggestion, PC Paws Rescue has been hosting a dog adoption event in front of the store this afternoon. I'm not suggesting you leave this minute and go to check it out. But if you're interested in rescue dogs, please get in touch later with DC Paws Rescue. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Dave Barry.
Thank you, Bradley, for making such a big deal about how old I am. I noticed we didn't talk about losing hair, just grayness. No, I do appreciate that introduction, and I love Politics and Prose. Every author does love to come here. The audiences here are so great, and so thank you. It's nice to be back in Washington. By show of hands, anybody here not seeking the Democratic nomination for president? So, well, one person, okay, everybody else is in. I want to acknowledge a couple people in the audience because they were my editors for years at the Miami Herald. One of them is Tom Schroeder. Tom, wave your hand. And Gene Weingarten over here. So. And it's a special relationship you have when you write humor and you have editors, and you really don't want the editor to change something unless it's going to be better. And a lot of editors don't do that well. But you want to trust them, and Tom and Gene and I we had many disagreements over the years, and I have to say, in all honesty, they weren't always right, but when they were, it was really unusual. And so anyway, thanks Gene and Tom for coming. Thanks to a number of my friends here, and I appreciate that. So this is not a typical book for me. It's a little bit of a departure. I hope it's funny, but it's also a little bit of a self-help book. And I'm not known for that. Most of the time people, after they finish a book I've written, go, well, that didn't help me at all. Or I feel a little stupider now having read that book. But the idea behind the book, I have a dog, Lucy. She's now 11. She was 10 last year, do your math. And she was a rescue dog. And by the way, I thank is it PC Paws, the rescue folks back there? DC Paws. Thank you for bringing me. That's how we got Lucy. My daughter Sophie bugged my wife. I was always for dogs, but bugged my wife long enough that finally she broke down, and we went and got Lucy, and she's been our dog. And people often ask what kind of dog she is, and I actually did a genetic test on her where you scrape from their gum or something. And I think they make it up from there, because I don't. But no, so they said she was. Everybody assumes she's a retriever because she's a big black dog, but she's actually half boxer, a quarter Dalmatian, an eighth Chow Chow, and an eighth retriever. So she's a purebred Boxmation Chow Triever, we call them. So anyway, what happened was last year I turned, as Bradley pointed out, I turned 70, and at the same time Lucy turned 10. So she was 70 in dog years or whatever. So we're both old, basically, and I didn't like it. She didn't seem to mind it. The aging process. A lot of bad things. I mean, you're not supposed to. It's kind of incorrect to say, but getting old sucks. Among other things, you get old. A really bad thing happens to your memory. Particularly nouns. You a lot of the parts of speech go, but nouns. And so you'll be like talking to people, making a point, and you go, and even that hurts because you have arthritis. Yeah. So, the guy in the place with the thing. And this starts this game of charades, and like 20 minutes later, they figure out that you mean Hitler, but you can't remember what you were trying to say about Hitler, so that's bad. Medically, it becomes more and more unpleasant, your medical situation, as you get older. I don't really care what the medical profession does other than this. They need to find a way to get to the prostate other than the way they're getting to it now. What we want is a procedure where the doctor stands 85 yards away and goes, "Looks good from here, Dave." That's right. And everything becomes more depressing. Your mail becomes depressing. You get an incredible amount of mail about catheters. Probably the worst mail, and this starts well before you turn 70, really starts around 50. You start to get this endless stream of mail from ARP. ARP is, of course, the last sound you make before you die. ARP! Hurry, doctor, he's ARPing over here. But it's also an acronym, an abbreviation for the American Association of Retired People, standing in line ahead of you asking for a discount on every freaking thing. And I guess ARP's a good organization, but it annoys me the way they want you to believe that there's no negative part of getting old. It's that, it's fine, whatever you want to do, you can do. That there's, it's just a stereotype that getting old sucks. And I don't agree with that. I see it. Okay, this book tour is a good example of how, I'm including myself in this category. Old people have trouble sometimes adapting to changes in the world. And one clear example you see if you're an author on book tour is the way people take pictures. A lot of people, and it's very flattering, would like a picture of you when they get their book signed. And so when phones became the thing, everybody take out the phone. Here's how young people take a picture of you on the phone. Okay, they take out the phone, they take the picture, and that's that. Here's how your older people take a picture. Take out the phone, look at that for a minute. Oh no, I think it's on Google. Then they tap it a little bit more. Oh, okay, smile. Oh no, wait, it's taking a video. Hold on. Okay, now smile. Oh no, it took a picture of me. And then they give it to a young person who goes, and it's all over. So, and it's not just that. It's and ARP has this thing about no, enough with the Dottie Driver memes. I live in Miami. Okay, I live in Florida. We have a lot of older drivers down there. We have people who drive by what I call the seeing eye wife system of driving. It's a older couple. And the man drives the car. Why? Because the man drives the car. That's why. But the man can no longer see. So he has outsourced the seeing to his wife, who's saying, she's going, and I've been in cars with people driving by this. It's an arrow, but no, not that way. This is a true story, which I may have told here before, I don't know. True story, about 5 years ago, Miami police stopped a 72-year-old man driving a Chevrolet Cobalt, which in itself is not that weird. It's where they stopped him, and this is the truth. Runway 9, Miami International Airport. This happened. A man burst through a perimeter gate without realizing it and was on a runway when they got him to stop. Now, to me, that shows a lack of awareness on the part. I don't know about you. If I'm driving and I notice I'm tailgating a 757, I'm going to say, I am not on the expressway anymore, And what bothers me, that's my airport. I was in that airport a couple of days ago. I can't get in the airplane there with bottled water. He's out there with a Cobalt, It's like, but anyway. But ARP says this is like disregard all this stuff, and this is an actual quote from mail I get from ARP. You aren't too old for anything. That's the attitude of ARP. I disagree with that. Let's take airline pilots as an example. They are required to retire at age 65. Now, I'm sure most of them are still fine pilots at age 65. But I get why they get asked to retire, because do we want to just let it keep going? You want them to keep flying planes into their 70s, into their 80s, into their 90s? Does ARP want to get on a plane and hear the pilot say something like, ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We have reached our cruising altitude, so I'm going to go ahead and, wait a minute, my bad. My first officer informs me we are still on the runway. We're behind a Cobalt. So anyway, my point is, I've been unhappy with when, turn 70, it's a big one. You start to think about how much longer you have, what you've done with your life, what else you want to do with your life. And I wasn't really too happy with the results of that analysis. Meanwhile, Lucy, my dog, could not be happier. Everything about her is just joyful. She's the most enthusiastic, happy creature I know. And the idea behind the book was simple enough. It's just like, what is she doing that I could do that would make me happier like her? That's all. And I'm not saying that dogs are smart. If you know anything about my work, I don't think dogs are smart, okay? But I'm saying they might be wise. There's some wisdom there. There's some things they've learned over the years, over the thousands of years, that work for them, and they keep doing those things. And the difference is, we know those things. There's not a single thing in this book that everybody here doesn't already know. It's obvious advice. The thing is, we stop doing most of these things. Dogs never stop. They just keep doing the same things until they die. And they don't even see that coming. They're happy enough. They don't need to prearrange their funeral. They're just happy cruising along, and then they die, and it's a happy life they lead. So anyway, I cannot stress enough how much I'm not saying that you should view dogs as like gurus. Okay. That is not, I will give you an example of why we should not say that. At the time of hurricane, as I said, live in Miami. We have a lot of hurricanes. The hurricane season down there runs from June through the following June. And so I've been through a bunch of hurricanes. And probably my favorite single dog story ever happened in 1992. Hurricane Andrew passed directly over what was my house. And at the time of Hurricane Andrew, I had two dogs. I had a large Maine dog named Ernest and a small auxiliary backup dog named Zippy. No, you need 2 dogs in case your main dog goes down in the hurricane. So prior to Hurricane Andrew, I let Ernest and Zippy out every morning via a 2-stage procedure. And if you've ever had a dog, you know that going out in the morning is a big deal to the dog. Okay, the dog gets very excited. Dog can't believe you thought of it, even though you do it every single day. Dog, whoa, what a great idea. Like, where it's a cat is there, like, it's like, you, about time you zit brain, But dogs are just, they can't get over how intelligent we are. So anyway, it was a 2-stage procedure for Ernest and Zippy. I would open the back door of the house, they'd rush out into our patio, which had a screen enclosure around it, which you need in South Florida to keep the mosquitoes from stealing your patio furniture. And they would race across the patio to the screen door and wait for me, very eager. And I would go over and open the screen door, and they would go out into the yard. Hi, Amy. I just realized you're here. So that was a procedure: back door, screen door, yard. And they learned that the way dogs learn a procedure. So comes Hurricane Andrew, and the screen enclosure is orbiting the Earth. It's gone. But the screen door was still there. So you don't think dogs are that smart either, do you? Really? You know exactly where I'm going. It was about a 2-week learning curve, during which time I'd open the back door and they ran to the screen door, just surrounded by nothing. This really happened, and they would wait for me because that was the procedure, okay? So again, not saying dogs are smarter. I am saying they are wiser. And I talk in the book about some things they do that they're very good about that I'm not good about. And I got much worse about as years passed. One of them simple is like, make friends. Keep in touch with the friends you have, make friends. Lucy's great about making friends. Anybody she meets, she loves immediately. Any dog, any person. She's a friend. And I was like that, I think, more anyway, when I was a kid, even through college. But after a while, you get older, you get more picky. Like, I don't want to see my friend. I don't even like my friends, I'm not even sure my friends are still alive. Only way to know would be to call them up. I'm not going to do that, I think I'm going to, it's in a kind of a generalization, but too bad. I think women are better about this. Women, my wife can call any of her friends for any reason, anytime, and they can just talk for hours. It doesn't have to be any reason. If a guy calls another guy, the question is immediately, why? You have to have a reason for the call. And then once you get out of that way, you're done. It's like, what are you going to talk about now? Which is like, I can not see somebody I can not see a friend for like 20 years and see that friend, and we can be completely caught up in 45 seconds. And then it's either we stop or we go to sports, which is, I think, only exists so guys have something to talk to. My wife can, see somebody, then go away for an hour and come back and see that person again, and they can talk about that hour for 4 hours. So they're just better at it. So I have made a point of trying to stay in better touch with my friend. I'm not saying I'm doing a great job, but I'm trying to do it better. One of the big ones is it's, again, simple. Nothing you don't know. Have fun. Like when you're a kid, that's all you do. You have fun. It doesn't occur to you to even do anything but have fun. That's all you're trying to do ever. And then, as you get older and you have more obligations, academic at first, and then professional and family and everything, you still sometimes have fun, but you're spending a lot of time doing things that aren't so much fun. And then I think at some point you kind of stop, and mostly if you get older, you stop having fun because you think it's inappropriate. It's not, it's beneath you. It's not, it's silly. And so you begin to have what I call like ARP fun. They show you can add, and for senior citizen products on TV, the people they're kind of having fun, but it takes the form of grinning. They're just standing around grinning on a golf course, at a resort. They're not doing anything fun. There's no drugs. There's no toilet exploding. They're just grinning, or maybe that's the drugs. I don't know, but I think a lot of it is just like you have to be dignified when you get old, and you can't do, a lot of times, things that are really fun are kind of silly. So I did this in inventory when I turned 70. What in my life has really been fun for me? What have I really, really enjoyed that just has no productive value at all, but it's fun? And I came up with a couple of things. The main one was music. When I was in college, I played in rock bands. And when I got out of college, that stopped, and I had a career and all that. And later in life, I got connected with a bunch of other authors, and we formed a band called the Rock Bottom Remainders, which is a band of authors. And the authors are good. It's Scott Turow, Stephen King, Amy Tan, Mitch Albom, James McBride, Greg Giles. There's good authors in this band, but we're a terrible band. One of our members is Roy Blunt Jr., who describes our genre as hard listening music. I say we play. I call it the rumor method of music, which is to say, everybody's playing something, and then a rumor goes around that there's been a chord change, and we all eventually change to another chord, not necessarily the same new chord, but we have fun. We have a tremendous amount of fun, and we got formed when I was in my 40s, played through like my late 50s, then we kind of stopped. And I determined as a result of writing this book that we needed to get the band back together again, and got in touch with everybody and said, come on. And we're going to play a gig. That's musician talk. You understood chord, right? Because that's a little tricky. That's a thing that they have in songs. But we're going to play at a big festival in Minneapolis in May. But the whole band is going to get back together, and I'm very excited about that because it's fun, and I love doing it. And I wouldn't have done it, I don't think, if I hadn't decided that I was never going to have fun again. If I didn't do something like make an effort to do it. Although there's I have to tell you, one negative aspect to being in the band, or at least was negative for me. A lot of bands, I understand, the way they do it is they practice ahead of time. So they actually know which chords they intend to play. And then they play. Our technique has been to play the show and then go to a bar and say, we should have practiced those songs ahead of time. So that's our big weakness. But anyway, this is some years ago, I think 15 years ago or so. We played a show in New York City, and afterward went to the hotel bar. And we're at the bar, and I was drinking, I believe, vodka gimlets. And next to me was Scott Turow, who is one of my favorite people, brilliant writer, funny guy, great guy. And he was carrying on an in-depth conversation with the person to his right about his spleen. And I was like, talking to other people and drinking my vodka gimlets, and I kind of caught wind of this conversation. And I said, "Excuse me, but are you saying you don't have a spleen?" And Scott said, "Yeah, I don't have a spleen. That's the point of the story." Oh, okay. So then he goes back to talking. I made have another vodka gimlet, and then he said something that seemed wrong to me, and I tapped him and said, "Wait a minute, I thought you said you didn't have a spleen." And he goes, "No, I don't have a spleen. That is the point of the story." So, okay. So, now, if you've ever been around a person who's had too many vodka gimlets, you maybe know what I did next. But another 10 minutes go by, and I'm troubled by something. And I said, "I thought you said you don't have a spleen." And Scott took a Sharpie, pulled up my sleeve, and wrote "no spleen" in big letters on my right forearm. And that solved the problem for that rest of the evening. So then we went to bed. Not Scott and me. It's not and it's not that I wouldn't. I like Scott, but and not in that way. But we went to bed, and next morning we had to get up early to take a train to Boston where we had another show. So I get up, and I'm not in good condition. And I'm staggering toward the bathroom, and I look in the mirror, and I see something's written on my arm. I have no memory of how it got there. I look down and it says, "no spleen." So there's this urban legend, the businessman who drinks with an attractive woman at the bar, and she slips something into his drink, and he wakes up the next morning in his hotel bathtub packed in ice, and there's a note saying that they've harvested his kidney. And for just one horrible minute there, I thought, they've harvested my spleen. And I don't know where it is, so I don't really know. I don't know where you check for that, But then as my brain slowly rebooted, I thought, that's ridiculous. Nobody would harvest you. You don't need a spleen. I mean, they're always taking people's spleens out. They do it for recreational purposes in hospital. You know, there's no market for spleens, is what I'm saying. It's probably a saying in organ harvesting circles. He's so stupid he would harvest a spleen, you know. So that wasn't great. And I guess the lesson, it's not really a lesson from Lucy. The lesson I would draw from that is don't have that many vodka gimlets. And the one last lesson I'm going to talk about for now, and then I'm going to actually want to do a little performance related to it, is about anger. And basically the lesson is let go of your anger. Don't, it's not possible to never get angry, I don't think, but it is possible to deal with your anger in different ways. And dogs are very good about this. Like Lucy gets angry. She has she works in my office. There's a window looking out. I work in my office. She is in my office while I'm working. And there's a window looking out at the driveway with a window seat, and she likes to sit on the window seat and keep an eye on things. And once a week, you're not gonna believe this, once a week, men come and take our garbage. This really pisses Lucy off. She's barking furiously. She says, and she's always looking at me like, do you see what, are you gonna just let them take it? But then as soon as they're gone, she forgets about it. It's over for her. She doesn't wake up at 2:00 in the morning saying, let them take the garbage again, man. Whereas I do that. I get angry all the time, and I remember what I'm angry at. I get angry all over again. Not half them, almost all the time. It doesn't make any difference that my anger is doing me no good whatsoever. Certainly not solving the original problem, and yet I do it. The example I give in the book is like, okay, if you're at an ice cream store, and it's one of those ice cream stores where they have lots of different flavors, and they have those little tasting spoons, so you can taste and see which one you sample some ice cream, see which one you want. Let's say we're at that kind of an ice cream store. Let's say you're in line ahead of me, and it's a big line. Let's say it's your turn at the front. If you take a sample, I don't mind that. That's cool. Well, it's fine. Another sample. Okay, you want to compare. Okay, couple. Even though there's a line behind you. But if you take a third, if you start sharing it with your friends because you have friends there, what do you think of this? Then if you go back to the first one, can I try the first one again? I want to kill you. I really do. I mean, I'll just be enraged. I won't say anything, but I'm seething back there. And then later on, I think, why? Oh, of course, you can see I'm still angry about it, actually. But why do I get, it's a minute of my life, and, I'm not going to make these people stop being jerks. I'll still get my ice cream, but it can just, it's astonishing to me how angry I can get over simple things. And I drive in Miami, where my joke is everybody's driving according to the law of his or her individual country of origin. So I'll be just, enraged the whole time. I've worked hard on this, on just calming down, especially this week, because I'm on a book tour. So I'm spending a lot of time on airplanes with people who don't understand the statement, when you get to your row, please step in. See how calm I am being about this? Just step in! When you get to your row, so that people can get by you, okay? Is that too much to ask? But I'm otherwise pretty good about it. So anyway, I give an example in the book of a time I got really furious and kind of unfairly, I think, in retrospect. And I want to read a little bit of do a little play for you about it. But basically what happened is, do you guys have Comcast? Okay, this involved Comcast customer service. I had a situation, the guy who does our yard, comes once a week, does the yard, accidentally sliced through our cables, both the phone company, AT&T cable and the Comcast cable. You could see them just dangling from the wire, from the pole outside our house. So he came around, he was very apologetic, he offered to pay. I said, don't worry about it, we'll get this straight. Get on the cell phone, I called AT&T, said the guy cut the cable, fine, we'll send a truck. And they did, no problem. Then I called Comcast customer service, which is in Uzbekistan. And there's a guy there with a script that he's supposed to follow that apparently didn't have this situation in. So I said, guy cut the cable. So our cable's been cut. We need somebody to repair the cable. And he goes, I see, David. They say your name a lot. I see, David. I'm sorry, David, that your cable has been cut, David. And I will work to resolve your problem, David. And it was great. Thank you. Good. David, can you tell me if all your cable boxes are turned on right now? I said, it really doesn't matter if they are or they're not. So I don't know the physics of it, but the TV can't get into the house now. It's spilling all over the lawn because it's unconnected. Can't get to the box. I see, David. David, can you please check the serial number of the main, like that. He was following his script, and I went as far as I could before I lost my temper and started yelling at him. And it was, again, it was not his fault. It didn't make it happen, resolve it any quicker. But again, this is something I'm still thinking about a couple of years later. So I need to get better about that. But anyway, the one advantage of being a humor writer is when you have a situation like that where something angers you, you can write about it. And often that helps to get your anger out. So I wrote a little play. It's in the book. But I'm going to perform it for you now as a result of this experience with Comcast. And I need a person to help me with it. I need somebody with some theatrical experience. Let me just look around at random. Oh, Rachel Mantufel happens to be in the crowd. Rachel, could you come up? And yeah. Rachel, you can read, right? This is Rachel Mantufel, everybody. Give her a big hand. So you're going to be the red. Rachel's going to be the customer service person, okay? I have a fantasy. In this fantasy, late one night, a cable executive calls 911, only to discover that as a cost-cutting measure, the police department has outsourced its 911 operation to the cable company.
Thank you for choosing 911. What is your emergency?
A man broke into my house. He has an axe.
May I have your name and address?
Bob Timmons, 123 Belchwater Road. Please hurry.
Thank you, Bob. Bob, I understand you are saying you have an intruder in your house?
Yes, with an axe. Please send somebody.
Bob, I am sorry that an intruder with an axe is in your house, and I will help you to resolve this problem.
Please hurry. He's coming up the stairs.
Bob, in order to assist you, I am going to need to ask you some questions. Is that okay, Bob?
Yes, just hurry.
Bob, first, can you tell me, did you give permission for this intruder to enter your house, Bob?
No, for God's sake, he broke in with an axe.
Thank you, Bob. I understand you were saying that the intruder does not have your permission to be in your house at 123 Elkwater Road. Is that correct?
No, I'm at 123 Belchwater Road.
So, Bob, you're saying that you are at 123 Belchwater Road.
Yes.
But the intruder is at 123 Elkwater Road, Bob.
No, he's here. He's breaking down the bedroom door. For the love of God, send help.
Bob, so that I can better assist you, can you please describe the axe?
On the executive's end of the line, there are shouts, sounds of a struggle, screams, then silence. A new voice comes on the line. Who is this?
This is 911. Is this Bob?
No.
Do you have an emergency?
Not anymore.
So the problem has been resolved.
Yes.
Would you be willing to take a brief customer satisfaction survey regarding your...
Late Rachel Mantufel, everybody. Okay, so that's sort of the premise of the book. I didn't go through all the lessons because there's more of them. They're all kind of the same. They're obvious things you should do that you don't do. Probably, well, I don't do anyway. Although I've gotten better. I just want to warn you. There's one last chapter. The book. I finished the book basically last spring, and I was supposed to go on book tour last October. And in August, my daughter, who was about to go to college, had a serious medical situation, and it was bad. It was bleak. If you're a parent, let me just say, it's like, as you probably know, if your kid's ever been sick, it's the worst thing that can happen. And I didn't know that I would ever write another word, to be honest. I was prepared to spend the rest of my life dealing with that situation. and certainly wasn't going to go on a book tour, certainly wasn't going to talk about this book. And she came out of it, and it was a miracle, really. I don't use that word lightly. And she is now at college, and which is also a miracle. So I don't want to make it sound like that it's still bad. It's not. But I didn't want to go on the tour for this book having left that out of it. I talked to my editor at Simon & Schuster, Priscilla Payton, and said, I really don't feel comfortable going out talking about a book of life lessons when the biggest lesson I've ever learned happened after I wrote the book, and I'd like to include it in the book. And she said, sure. So the last chapter in the book is about that. It got Lucy involved, but it's not really directly a Lucy lesson. It's just a lesson. And I tell you that only because it kind of takes people by surprise, that last chapter. It's a very different tone from the rest of the book. I don't mean to say it's a downer, because it's not meant to be. It's just a different tone. And so I'm warning you that that's in there, and I'll leave it there. Now, on that note, on that downer of a note, I would like to take questions if anybody has any. Can be about anything, except math. Oh, if Bradley asks that you come to one of these is there more than one? Yeah. Oh, there's a microphone there and a microphone there.
Hi. Oh my God, I'm so excited you're here.
Think how I feel.
I'm so excited you're here. I actually, your writing inspired a lot of the writing I do for work, but I have days where I'm like, oh, they're expecting me to be funny because they're used to it, and that's how they remember what I'm writing.
Are you a humor writer? You're writing?
Well, I write.
Please tell me you're not writing missile specifications.
I work for the environment, so it is kind of a funny.
You work for the environment.
I work for the Chesapeake Bay Foundation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's.
Well, I'm against the environment, so no. Anyway.
And I do a weekly internal newsletter, and it's just gotten a huge following, and they're used to me being like funny, but then I'll have a day where I'm like, I'm really not feeling funny. So I just wanted to hear about your creative process for those moments where there's that expectation and you have that deadline and you're like, oh, this isn't working. So I just wanted to hear what you had to say.
That is pretty much the permanent state of everybody I know who writes humor. And I'm not kidding. And everybody who does stand up or whatever is, the fear that there's no more, that you can't be funny anymore. And because you don't feel funny all the time. I mean, the image people have is that you're just sitting there thinking of these hilarious things, but it really doesn't work that way. It's slow and painful to write humor, as you know. But what always helps me is to remember that if I don't think of something funny, I will have to get a real job. So that always works for me. I mean, no, it could take a long time. I could take 2 days to write a sentence. And I have done that, and it comes down to like, which is better in this situation, squirrel or weasel, that kind of issue. And by the way, professional to professional, weasel. Okay.
Noted.
Yeah.
So my question has to do with Lucy. How is Lucy dealing with the state of politics in Washington, D.C., and what are her thoughts?
Well,
What's going through her head?
I can say that she's farting more. No, that's the beauty. They don't care. And I got to say, this is kind of getting into what I talk about in the last chapter. But when we were in the depths of despair, really, Washington was in a turmoil about the Kavanaugh hearings. The hospital had the TVs on, you'd see it everywhere. And my wife and I were like, your sense of what's really important changes radically in that situation. And I do think, without in any way suggesting anybody should change any opinion politically, whatever, it's none of my business, we could all stand to calm down, and freak out less. And dogs are very good about that because they have no idea what's going on anyway, Okay. So anyway, that's my answer. Yeah. Yes, sir.
2 weeks ago, I had a colonoscopy, and so
Did you bring pictures?
No, I have them, but
yeah, we all get them. It looks like the Lincoln Tunnel. I mean, like.
I reread your famous article from years ago, and just wondering if you can update us on the science of colonoscopies, any developments since that article?
As far as I know, I've now had 3 colonoscopies total. I just had one a few weeks ago. First of all, I'm pleased to report the drugs are still pretty wonderful. I don't do any drugs of any kind unless you count vodka gimlets. But man, you come out of the colonoscopy and you just think, let's do that again, man. It's just because you don't remember anything. They have not improved the preparation at all. For those of you who have not gotten colonoscopy, and you should get one you won't feel thin because of the drugs. But they have to clean you out, and so they give you a nuclear laxative, so powerful that your bowels travel into the future, and you expel food you have not even eaten yet. So I assume they still doing that, right? Yeah. Well, I'm glad it came out all right, so to speak.
Yep.
Good. Keep us posted, okay? Well, yeah.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand that you, Carl Hyacin, and Gene Weingarten were all at the Miami Herald at the same time.
Correct.
So there's
And Tom Schroeder. Yeah.
Tom Schroeder. So there's got to be some amazing stories here.
About well, I can tell you Gene's stories.
Go right ahead.
Not to me. I'll tell you my favorite Gene's. Can I tell you the favorite Gene's? Gene was my boss for a while, which is hilarious the more I think about it. But and Tom will back me up. Gene was easily the worst manager ever you couldn't even find his desk. Just couldn't. And it wasn't because it was his papers. It was disgusting. I don't know what was on his. But Gene never paid attention to the rules of the Miami Herald and all the corporate structure things. And if I recall the story correctly, Knight Ridder, which is the company that owned the Miami Herald, they had the headquarters upstairs, and they had some people come in. I think they were the investors or the people who analyzed stock analysts, whatever. And they had been told that they were going to get a tour of the Miami Herald, this valuable asset of Knight Ridder. And so every department head was told to prepare a brief presentation for them as they came through the building, and they told you when they were going to come. And Gene, of course, got this memo but never read it, or maybe even never saw it on his desk somewhere. And so we're there in the Tropic office, which was kind of a zoo, and in come these guys in suits, and we're there, and Gene had no idea what was happening. He was supposed to do. But he decided, on the spot to explain what we were doing, or what he was doing anyway. And we had this big conference table in the middle of the room at Tropic. And Gene is telling them we're doing this story about a guy who's an expert on hurricanes. And he was telling about the story that was the cover shot they were going to do, which was they're going to have the guy hang from like a bar, like a chinning bar. And then they were going to run it sideways on the cover. So it looked like the hurricane, winds were causing him to be blown out sideways. So Gene is explaining that to them. He decided it'd be better if our art director, Philip Brooker, showed them the picture. And he said, so Philip, can we get the picture of the guy getting blown? So everybody in the room chuckled a little bit, the guy getting blown. Gene thought that was the funniest thing ever said by any human being in the history of the world. And he starts to laugh, and he has this high-pitched kind of squealing laugh, and he goes down. And now we're all watching Gene, because the chuckle's all done for everyone else. And Gene is just like face down on the conference table, kind of quaking, finally gets himself together, comes back up again, and is again struck by the life-threatening humor of what he has said, and back down he goes. And he's quaking. The room is dead silent now. We're just all watching Gene just like quaking there, and then comes up one more time, goes right back down again. And the fourth time he came up, they were gone. That was the conclusion of the Tropic magazine presentation. And I don't know if it's coincidence that the Herald killed the magazine a few years after that. But anyway, so that was Gene's management style. Any other? Oh, no, we're done? Yeah, okay, sure.
I want to thank you for mentioning Ernest and Zippy.
Oh, you're welcome.
You have made, I don't have a question. I just want to say there are probably a lot of people here who just
Big
adore
fans
your
of-
writing. And I'm sorry to hear it's painful for you to do, because I just wish you would write faster and more.
Thank you. Well, thank you, but no, yeah.
I do have a question. Can you tell us about your annual look back at the 12 months?
Oh, the year in
previously?
review.
The year in review. Do you write that starting in January? Do you
No.
start in December and go back and look at it? How do you pull that together?
Well, I write it starting in around Halloween, I kind of have to go back and review that. And the thing is, it's hard to write because, it's supposed to be funny, but when you look back at the headlines, like 90% of them involve death, or disease or whatever. I always think I'm never going to get anything out of this year, but then somehow I usually manage to get something. People, it's a lot of work. It's the most work of anything I do, I think, but people like it, so I keep doing it. But that's really all I have to tell you. It's just a little slow and painful.
Do you get different reactions in different parts of the country to that? So as you go around the country, do you find certain cities react differently?
What are you trying to get me to say? And I'll say it, but people tell me they like it. I mean, but that's the thing. Are they going to come up and say, I don't like it? So the ones who don't like it, they're in the back. I can see them. But most people tell me they like it. So, I'm going to keep doing it as long as people tell me that.
So, Dave, just one more. In that same vein of Eric's question, you wrote, I believe, a long time ago, you were sent by the Miami Herald for, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks to cover the Florida legislature.
Oh, yeah. Well, it wasn't 2 or 3 weeks, but yeah.
But it wasn't very long, right?
No,
it wasn't the whole session.
I generally don't feel that I need to spend more than several hours looking at anything Florida legislature.
So
No,
question,
it was a couple of days.
Yeah, and it was great. It was one of the best, reviews of the state of politics in Florida that, anybody could possibly read. So I'm just wondering, has it crossed your mind to come to Washington for a few hours and spend some time on Capitol Hill?
Well, believe it or not, I actually did that once back in the early 90s. And I'm trying to remember. Stephen LaTourette was a congressman from Ohio. And a woman on his staff, I knew her she used to work in the newspaper business. And I said, do you think he would let me come up and just be in his office for a week? And he said, yeah. He was a very kind of easygoing guy. He was first-term congressman. He didn't expect to be there long. He ended up being there for like 20 years, something like that. But not only did I was in his office for a week. I answered mail, answered the phone. By the end of the week, I was meeting with delegations of people. Seriously. There's a lot of what you do, is you just sit there and nod. It's the people concerned about bathroom caulking, or something. Whatever it is, they have pieces of paper. You, yeah, it's caulking. I'll sure make sure Congressman LaTourette sees this, But my favorite thing is he let me write a speech that he delivered on the floor of Congress about lawyers. I came out against them. Even though he is one, but he cheerfully delivered it because, as we all know, you're all Washington people. Nobody's paying any attention to what gets said on the floor of Congress at all most of the time. You could say anything. So, but I did do it. It was fun. I was always struck by how many people. I don't know if it's still like this because now we're in a more electronic age. How many people seem to spend the entire day clutching a sheaf of papers and walking really fast through the Rayburn building, from just walking. And I'm thinking like some of them don't actually go into any doors ever. They just get that sheaf and start walking. Maybe at the end of the shift, hand the sheaf to somebody else who's walking. There's a lot of, I called them the striding paper clutchers, and they were just everywhere. Is that still happening? Some of you must have. Yeah. Everybody's really important. Everybody's so important here in Washington, D.C. Don't think we don't know that out there in taxpayer land. So anyway, well, thank you so much, everybody. Thanks especially to Politics and Prose. Thank you.